Hey, what's going on, everybody? This week on Movie Time, Jordan Peele's third movie, Nope, is hitting theaters, and Blake and I literally just watched it, so we cannot wait to talk about this movie. We will give our non spoiler thoughts in the beginning of the video, then dive a little bit deeper into the movie as a whole. How does this rank with Jordan's first two movies? We are definitely going to talk about that too. So sit back, relax, let's enjoy some movie time talk starting now. What is going on, everybody? Got another week, so that means it's another episode of Movie Time. We got myself, Renee, LOWKEY GEEK here, and my boy, Blake the Wolf. What's going on, dude?
Renee, am I not excited to be here? Nope. I am very excited to be here.
Yup.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm so high off of that Nope movie experience. I'm glad we're doing this. What's up, man?
Yeah, no, I too am excited about it. It's just, again, it's like one of those moments that you just love when you just watch the movie and you just can't wait to talk about it, right? And this is definitely one of those movies. So this week, obviously, we're talking about Jordan Peele's third movie, Nope, that is hitting theaters now.
Yep.
There it is. I was waiting for that. So,
Nope.
as what we always do, yep.
Yep.
We like to give our little thoughts and not like non-spoiler thoughts and feelings about the movie in the beginning of the video. And then we will prompt you when we're going to start going more into a deep dive as to stuff that we found interesting about the movie. We're definitely going to go into some of our theories and probably themes that we feel that this movie covers, because what Jordan Peele movie would there be if there wasn't anything like that, right? So definitely stay tuned to listen to our thoughts about all of that. If you are new to this channel, if you're new to this video, hello there. Welcome. You like it? Hit the like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you could show your love and support for the channel and get notified every time a new video of ours gets uploaded. If you are an audio listener, you could find a LOWKEY GEEK channel there on your podcast platform of choice where you could download this episode and many others. Also, don't forget, leave a rating when you get prompted, because that definitely does help with the channel. It doesn't cost you a thing. It's free. It's just words. You could tell us that you hate us, that you love us,
Nope.
or whatever. Or you could just say nope or yup over and over again. Actually, please do that, because that means that you listened to this episode, and that would be fantastic. So let us go. Let's just start talking about this movie. It's my initial thoughts about the movie is that it definitely is a different Jordan Peele movie, but not something that we have not seen from Jordan Peele previously, because I think we were talking about this offline. It does definitely feel this is more of the Twilight Zone version of Jordan Peele. It's the first time that on the bigger screen, he's diving more into kind of sci-fi and kind of more of that. Not, I want to say, not the blockbuster like type of action and thrill and suspense, but it's very comparable to some other movies like what we may have seen from Spielberg or whatever the case is. I definitely got strong vibes from movies like Signs. Like, there are a lot of moments in this movie where it felt like I was watching Signs, and there were a lot of comparisons when Jordan Peele first came out that, oh, is this going to be like the next M. Night Shyamalan? You know, and so in a way, it was kind of fitting that, oh, I felt like there were like moments of Signs in here, but for me overall, I felt like there was a lot of feelings of Jaws in this movie. You know, Steven Spielberg's Jaws, I mean, in itself, when that movie came out, was considered to be a horror-like movie, where you have this one menacing threat, and you have the obsession of the people trying to not only see this threat, but eventually take it down. And you definitely get a lot of that in this movie without spoiling anything right now. You see it in the trailer too. Like, there is like this obsession with this event or this thing that's happening. So I definitely get a lot of feeling about that. The This is probably one of Jordan's more beautiful looking movies. The cinematography is well done. The use of colors, the fact that a lot of the stuff that happens actually happens in the daylight during daytime.
Hmm.
That's something that we haven't gotten much from Jordan Peele in the past. Either it was indoors or always seems to be happening at night. So for something that's considered to be like a horror movie, we don't really get to see a lot of that because in essence, that's what makes it more tense filled, and it definitely makes you a little bit more, gripping at the seats, just like, okay, what's really going to happen now? Because we're in the daylight where it's supposed to be safe, but certain things are definitely happening there. But the score in itself is great. We'll talk about his use of turning certain songs into scary moments, because there's
Hmm.
definitely this one song in this movie that he did that too. But the acting, the acting in this movie is
Wow.
phenomenal. Keke Palmer, huge breakout here in this movie. I mean,
Wow.
she's been around for a while, for a minute, but I think a lot of people in general might not even know her work, her past work, and all that. This will definitely bring her into more of the forefront, and her chemistry with Daniel Kaluuya, it was just brilliant, just really, really well done. And Stephen Yeun, I mean, he is just. We were talking about this too offline. Not anything that he's done, it's never been a bad thing. It's always been
Yep.
good. He's always put on a huge effort, and he really, really does a great job in this movie as a whole. So, I really, really enjoyed this movie. If you couldn't tell already by now, this is definitely. Some people are saying like this is his best movie. I would say this is, if not on par with Get Out, probably just
Mhm.
within, it's definitely a conversation as to which is his better movie, this or Get Out. I'm not saying Us was that bad, but Us was definitely a different type of movie. And I think a lot of people in general didn't think Us was as equal to Get Out as far as movie quality. But Blake, what are your initial thoughts and feelings about this movie?
Dude, I love this movie. I agree with what you said earlier. It's one of those movies which is too rare where you leave going, I can't wait to talk about this movie. Where I was
Yeah.
like hyped about it. I was Googling stuff about it. I was trying to like think through theories about it. So I'm glad we're doing this. This is the first conversation I'm having about this movie.
Hmm.
But I definitely was like taking some notes in my head and like putting together theories during it. Um, so it's definitely that kind of movie. I know we'll get to spoilers later, but for now, my overall thoughts. Um, it it was an it might be my favorite Jordan Peele. I have to let it sit for a minute because Get Out was so damn special.
Yeah.
You're talking about M. Night Shyamalan. Like, if people are going in, part of the problem with that is expectations game in these genres can be really
Hmm.
tricky. And when M. Night Shyamalan's whole deal was what's the twist, and even movies that he didn't even try to put a twist in there, or if he did, it was, you know, that messed up a lot of people's expectations for all his movies. I think
Right.
this was a great next step for Jordan Peele to make his movies kind of like expand what he's able to do, tell a new kind of story, but it was still just as compelling, more cinematic, and the messages were still there for
Yeah.
sure. I'll
Hmm.
get into that. It'll be probably closer to the end where I'll just like after we get to talk about it, I get to put some of this together more. But I have like a grand theory on what this movie's about. But for now, I loved how cinematic it was. I they're using IMAX cameras for this one.
Yep. Hmm.
He's using a cinematographer that had worked with Chris Nolan with that stuff with Interstellar and Dunkirk, and it looked so damn good. I liked what you mentioned about the daylight of it.
Hmm.
Um, that having a horror movie set out in an open field in the sun was cool.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say horror, like it touches on a few genres, and if you're going in only for like jump scare, freak out stuff, I might just like in general, my warning to anybody would be definitely go see it, but maybe just throw your expectations, turn them as low as you can on any aspect of what you're hyped about it.
Hmm.
It doesn't have as much political messaging as Get Out did. it's not might not be as horror filled as like the trailer made it seem. I think it had less than Us, the Jordan Peele movie, than Us did in that way. But overall, as far as like everything that makes a movie, not just was it a successful telling of a story the way that Get Out was so damn successful. Get Out was more zeitgeisty and hit the culture in such a way that people were talking about it for months, and
Hmm.
anytime it comes up, like it hit people a certain way. I don't know if this movie will have that effect necessarily. I do strongly feel like this is maybe a more well-rounded movie that audiences might appreciate more just for the movie of it, not necessarily the moment that it hit the culture. But like I said, there is still some messaging there, and we'll get to that a little bit later. I think the only other thing, if I'm talking to somebody about recommending this movie, the question I always have with movies like this is like, how scary was it? Even before I saw Get Out, for example, there was a website that did like it puts it on a scary scale from like Jurassic Park being on the lower end to just the most like whatever Blair Witch Project or Saw or whatever. Like, where is it on that scale? This one is on the lower end to me for sure. If you're chicken shit like I am and terrified of horror movies, I felt cool throughout it. There was a couple tense moments that weren't so bad, and knowing that you're in the capable hands of Jordan
Hmm.
Peele, that it's worth it, and that there will be even if that does make you like squeamish, that it's worth sitting through. Definitely, I think you'd have to have a really weak stomach to be like, I no fuck it, I won't see this movie no matter what. So if
Right.
that's your concern, I would go see it. Overall, like review, I thought it was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars on my letterbox out of five, just straight up.
Nice.
In
Yeah.
theory, we could talk about it. It might drop to like a 4, 4.5, but right
Hmm.
now, and I think in general, it's basically a perfect movie in all the ways that you can rank a big movie like this. Um, I think the only other thing that might throw somebody off is like what your movie theater experience is like. Sometimes like a horror movie, especially, there's people yelling behind you and the whole audience gets into it. It didn't feel like that kind of movie to me.
Hmm.
It felt like there was, however, buy-in from my audience. It was probably, I saw it showing like right after work ended, so it was surprisingly full for that. It was probably about half full, maybe.
Hmm.
A small theater in Midtown Manhattan, and the audience definitely bought in. Like, I'm going to go see the new Jordan Peele movie as soon as I get off work type of audience. There was
Yeah.
a little bit of audience interaction slash reaction, like what's happening on the screen in real time, where somebody's like yelling or laughing and they get the jokes. And when there's a microaggression or a white person saying something just real embarrassing, like they're laughing at that, or the way that
Right.
somebody will react to a scene. There definitely was appreciated by this audience, and that was cool. So I might go see it earlier on with that kind of crowd if you can.
Hmm.
Overall, though, it's such a quality movie. It doesn't necessarily need that
Hmm.
necessarily. I also know that some people were talking about like their experience seeing Get Out, and I was one of where it was a very tense moment leaving the theater. And I remember Django Unchained was another movie where I had that, where
Hmm.
like I'm just kind of like looking around, like, do I apologize? Like people are looking at me kind of like, fuck, this is it's such like those movies were so charged.
Yeah.
This one definitely doesn't have that nearly to the same degree at all. So, in general, I would definitely go see this sooner rather than later. But whenever you get a chance to see it, definitely. I'm glad I had that theater experience though.
Nice.
What was your theater like, and what was your like real time gut reaction?
I mean, like, I'll go into theater experience. I mean, my theater wasn't that packed at all. I did see it at 4 p.m. today.
Okay,
And especially here in Queens, people haven't really come back from work yet, right? So,
right.
it was interesting though because it was mostly quiet. I would say like maybe there's roughly around 15 to 20 people in the theater in total, but it was mostly quiet. I had a guy sitting next to me though that laughed a lot. He snickered a lot at stuff that I didn't even think was particularly funny.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what humor he found behind it, or if it's more irony. Maybe he was laughing at certain things. Um, I think we both reacted to a funny scene at the same time twice, right? But other times, like he was just
Okay.
snickering and laughing at stuff that I was like, why is that funny? That's basically what I was thinking. Like I'm trying to like figure it out, right? But my initial gut, it's good to talk about like expectations, right? because another
Yeah.
another thing to point out too is like when I say that this is not a typical Jordan Peele movie based off of the other two that we got, is that there isn't really a huge or major twist per se in this movie. Everything has been pretty much explained straightforward. As long as you're just watching and paying attention, you don't really have to guess or speculate or anything like that. Everything that transpires on screen is pretty much explained, and you're told as an audience this is exactly what's happening. So there's no like middle ground, there's no ambiguity, there's no like, oh, but what really did happen or what is really the
Right.
meaning there? Like Us was all over the place with that stuff. Even years later, people were still wondering, okay, but why were they there? Why this was that, and what happened at the
Yeah.
end? And then Get Out, it was just more like, okay, it was filled with a lot of messaging and kind of like touching on a lot of social aspects that's happening in the world and everything. This is just very straightforward. Now, can someone sit back and be like, wait a minute, I think they're referring to this, or I think they're talking about this, and maybe this is in reference to blah blah blah? 100%. Like I said, it wouldn't be a Jordan Peele movie if there wasn't any of that. But if for a typical audience member, a movie going person who is not that conspiracy theorist or anything like that, they're just going to enjoy it for what they got. And that's why I said this is definitely more of a cinematic blockbuster type of movie of his. That is like an homage to the Spielbergs and maybe early, Shyamalan and all that stuff like that. And it was great. I mean, I was really enjoying a lot of it. Like I said, the chemistry and the dialogues between uh, you know, Daniel and Keke were just so good. Like you really felt that they were indeed truly brother and sister there.
Yeah.
And going back to the whole thing, like expectations as far as horror is concerned, this is definitely not, in my opinion, a typical horror movie. It's definitely more suspenseful, more mystery in a way, and a lot of thrills in there. There are like maybe two main scenes or two main things that happen in this movie that probably would be considered to be horrific. And
Right.
if you stay tuned to the spoiler section, we will talk about those because that actually does have some pretty good meaning in this movie. But other than that, if you were to somehow take those parts out, there's really not much of a horror feel in this movie, unless you compare it to categorizing Jaws as a horror movie, right? With the exception of,
Right.
you know, not seeing Jaws eat people, right? Like if they didn't show Jaws eating people, then some would think like, is this really like a horror movie, or is this,
Right.
whatever the case is. So take that with a grain of salt, and take that into consideration when you're going to go watch this movie if you haven't done so yet. But that being said, I mean, I think it was a brilliantly edited movie. It was the story itself is so well written, the dialogue, the characters, very well thought out, and just in the overall experience was just really, really fun and entertaining for me. And like I said, it's definitely one of those movies that you could choose to talk about it and really start dissecting all the hidden meanings in there, but it's not really truly necessary. If that's not something that you are willing or wanting to do. Yeah, if I was to give this a rating, I definitely probably would give it 4.5 stars there.
Yep.
I think I back in the day, I think I did rate Get Out 5 stars, and I gave Us 3.5 or maybe 4.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that will be a good question, a good thing to actually talk about now. Where would you rate this really within? Now we're only talking about 3 movies right now. So where would this land in so far in the library of Jordan Peele?
I am putting it right now as number one.
Okay.
I have art. So, and I also we can throw in what you mentioned earlier, Twilight Zone. How this is kind
Yeah.
of in that realm of his.
Hmm.
I was binging it earlier. I think that was successful. Some episodes more than others. I'm gonna put that like at the bottom. Um, but it's also in a way like it doesn't really count. So on the three movies, Us is at the bottom for sure. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put the middle, Get Out, close second, like close to this movie.
Hmm.
Get Out is more special in certain ways
Right.
and maybe more impactful
Hmm.
overall, but um, as far as just quality of movie, this one to me takes the cake for sure. Like it's not even close. It felt
Yeah.
like when I look back at Get Out, like Get Out was more of a made for TV kind of movie, which it's not at all. I'm not trying to say it is, but it was like so much the scale was so different.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was so damn cinematic. And
Yeah.
if you're considering like a Spielberg type of movie to be like the apex of what movies Hollywood cinema can be, this was right up there with any of the classics in my mind. So I'm putting it number one for right now.
No, okay, no, hey, I don't, I have no argument for that because I think right now it definitely is above Us for me. Whether or
Yeah.
not it replaces Get Out in the number one spot, I don't know. I can if I can honestly say that just yet, because like you
Okay.
said, Get Out was very special when that came out, and
Special.
we haven't seen storytelling like that prior to that, like, and just
Yep.
the use of the genre plus incorporating the social messaging and the political aspect and all that, like it was just such a great marriage there, and it worked out really well. Where, and I think I said this before when I was talking about the new Candyman, it wasn't something that was thrown in your face over and over and over again. It was very subtle, and if you paid
Yep.
close enough attention to it, you picked it up, right? And it leads to more conversations like after you've watched it, right? Where Candyman was just like, da da, in your face, in your face, in your face. I'm like, okay, we get it. In your face, in your face, in your face, like that. And I think that's one of Jordan Peele's like strongest things, that when he writes a story, of course he's gonna incorporate a lot of his feelings and the way he kind of views society and politics and entertainment and all that, and he's gonna use that to kind of formulate a story that will play on those themes, and show it in a light that, in essence, could be horrific, right? And that's why a lot of people would consider his movies to be in the horror genre and all that. But yeah, I totally agree. It is definitely one of his more cinematic. It makes me really excited to see what he's gonna do after this, because
Yeah.
his game picked up big time with this movie as far as the cinematic aspect of it, the use of special effects, which in this movie seems very simple, but it's very effective. Like very very well affected and all that. And I do love the fact that in a lot of the scenes you don't always see the full 100% picture of what's happening.
Yep.
So in a way that kind of leads to your imagination, or at least just like, God, I could only imagine what that person's seeing right now. I can't see it, but
Yep.
the way that they're reacting to it's just like, wow, that is just phenomenal. So and this is probably one of the reasons why, and I don't know, maybe some people will get at me for this, but I do feel like Jordan Peele right now could possibly be considered to be our modern day Alfred Hitchcock, just
Hmm.
because of his storytelling, the way he puts things on the camera, and the way the stories do touch on more important themes and issues that's happening in the world today. So yeah.
Dude, I think that it was, could he be the Shyamalan, and like he was paving his own way
Mhm.
too. After Get Out, it wasn't clear like how we would ever top that. It was what it
Yeah.
was like. I feel bad for anyone who has to make a follow up to that movie.
Yeah.
Um, I think that Hitchcock is the level he's at now for
Yeah.
sure. With that level of comparison, you're talking about where you can't quite you don't know what's happening outside of the screen, and the characters don't either.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if it was something people talk about with the movie Cloverfield, and I think it was called Monster in a
Mm.
Box.
Hmm.
Is like a way to tell a story where you are only seeing the certain perspective, and you know that there's something out there, and
Right.
by not showing it, it makes it scarier. They
Yeah.
eventually do show that. Actually, I'm realizing we might be getting closer to spoilers, but they show certain things.
Yeah.
Um, that he did a really great job with that problem, especially for movies that are in this genre. because that
Yeah.
can be something tricky that can ruin a movie, which I think some people say Signs that ruined it for them. Otherwise, as far as I I was thinking about Get Out and how it's not the first woke horror movie, but it's the
Mhm.
first one like in woke era, and using the song, the Childish Gambino song, the Stay Woke song. Like
Yeah.
for this current era, it paved it opened up that to where Hollywood, which they've done with so many things over time, they go, oh, that can
Mhm.
make us a lot of money. Let's do a bunch of those. And I was looking up like the list of like top rated woke horror movies on IMDb, and it's like
uh
the first three are Jordan Peele, and everything else is everybody after that.
yeah.
And there's so many of those to where now, like this summer, we're going to see Bodies, 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 the
Right.
Pete Davidson movie that looks like a
Mhm.
campy high school woke horror movie. And that, I feel like that genre got watered down so damn quickly. I'm glad that the man stepped out of that box
Mhm.
and is doing something, because there's definitely still like there's commentary on microaggressions for sure. There's definitely commentary. Jordan Peele's talking about how he wants to make movies for Black people, and there's
Yeah.
definitely commentaries on what it would like, what it's like for these characters in this country. He's definitely not shying away from that or selling out by any means.
Mhm.
But this movie definitely transcends that genre that he essentially, like at least for this modern era, created.
Yeah.
So, Get Out on is it's so important. But right now, like I'm hyped about this movie for sure.
No, that's awesome. And again, another reason why I couldn't wait to talk about it, especially with you. So, and talk to, about it with all of you guys. So, again, let us know, what were your thoughts about the movie? Have you had a chance to see it yet? Have you thought about seeing it? And then maybe after listening to us ramble on about it, is it now something you're looking forward to? Let us know in the comments and let us know your thoughts about the movie. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, there are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals, so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, and make you, and pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code on that you see on the screen right now, LOWKEY GEEK, all caps, one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. As we now approach spoiler territory. So again, we are warning you, if you do not want to be spoiled for this movie at all, stop watching, bookmark this, come back to this video later. Or if you just don't care and you just want to hear us continue gushing over this latest opus from Jordan Peele, stick around. Let's have listen to us have another fun conversation about some of the more details about the movie. And like I said, we're definitely going to go into some of the themes and kind of theories as far as the messaging and what maybe Jordan is trying to say in this movie. So that being said, last warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. So I'm gonna start off. I think right now let's start off about some of the parts of the movie that we enjoyed the most.
Sure.
So for me, I love, again, like I said, very reminiscent to Jaws, how there is this hidden threat, and based off of the trailers, especially the more recent one, we have that feeling that, oh, this is a UFO, right? Oh, it's aliens and this and that. And I love how he really plays on that, but then you come to realize later on that it is something a little bit more than that. It's something a little bit different than that. And the fact that yes, we are dealing with an alien presence here, it's not the main real focus really as
Mm,
to the overall story, right? Because
mm,
yes, it's a threat to the characters and it's a threat to the town, and unfortunately a lot of lives were paid, at the hands of this, giant creature that basically, as it turns out to be, it's not a ship, but it is actually a living organism. It's a living being that loves eating people. But it's because it's doing so because it's feels threatened, right? And I think one of the first themes, and we won't go so deep into this now, but something that they kind of mention in the movie is kind of animal behavior, human behavior, right? When someone keeps staring at you, how do you feel? Like you may at times feel threatened, just like animals do. They make a reference when it comes to horses. If you look a horse in the eye, sometimes it might feel threatened. If you look at a lion in the eye, maybe it might come in and attack you. And you get a certain hint of that immediately in the beginning of the movie when they reference an incident that happened on a TV show that used an orangutan as one of the main characters, and something sets the animal off. And unfortunately, certain people got decimated by the hands of this poor animal that just basically was acting like an animal. They make a reference to Siegfried and Roy about how one of their tigers attacked one of them, and unfortunately he suffered major injuries and all that. But it definitely played a lot on animal instinct, animal behavior, and threats that animal feel and all that. Once they've realized that what they're dealing with, now it becomes this big hunt to, for them, one, catch it on camera, right? Because again, we are in Hollywood, and these are Hollywood folk and people who've worked in the industry, so they want to document it for sure. But then, how are they gonna put an end to it or make sure that it just stops doing what it's doing? And in a very Jaws like way, they have to do this bunch of stuff and to hunt and lure it and all that stuff like that. There's even what I would call a Quint moment where there's one guy is just way too obsessed with documenting the creature, getting as close as
mm.
possible to the creature, and unfortunately suffers his fate at the hands of the creature there, just so he could get a closer shot of it, up close and personal. But that was definitely some of the moments in the movie that I really enjoyed a lot. Here, there's a lot of other things too, but I think a lot of those things will be better fit for more of the themes and the theories within this movie. But what for you? What were some? Oh, and before I even go into that, this is a straight up homage to Hollywood in more than one way. It's just like you're dealing with former actors. You're dealing and kind of the aftermath of that. You're dealing with the industry and kind of how fair or unfair it could be to certain people, right, in certain organizations and everything. And kind of the attitude that you have or personality that you develop being around this industry, right? So there's definitely a lot of that happening here. So when in an interview, I think Jordan said that this is an homage to Hollywood. He didn't specify, but you could definitely tell that it's more than just one homage. And it's definitely there's definitely an homage to filmmaking, and it ties
Okay.
in very well with the cinematic feel of the movie. So there's a homage to that, homage to, again, like we mentioned, Spielberg, Shyamalan, all that stuff. But I think there's also an homage to kind of the effects of being in the industry, whether it you being an actor or a filmmaker and things like that. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. So for you, Blake, what were some of the moments that stood out for you that you really like?
Yeah, on the Hollywood of it all, that's I think my main theory, like what this is about. And most of my notes were just like, okay, this is a continuation of that theory. But more generally, I I'm thinking of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, as far as the ode
Mm.
to Hollywood and like retelling a story that's a real story kind of thing.
Mhm.
We I love that when these characters are introduced, and Daniel Kaluuya starts trying to tell the story. Keke Palmer shows up late, and she's telling the story of how her great great granddaddy
Yeah.
was the first man on the first movie, and riding the horse, the jockey on that famous, we used to have them in our museum growing up where you'd spin it and watch the
Yep.
horse ride. Um, the I didn't realize that it was a UFO movie until like recently, like the last week, because I was trying to avoid everything I could about it.
Sure. Yeah.
And then somebody mentioned that. I was like, wait, it's a UFO movie? I thought it was, honestly, based on the trailer, I thought it was a movie about people being turned into horses, which
Oh,
maybe also,
interesting.
yeah, maybe I'm also scarred from Sorry to Bother You, which the Keith Stanfield. I don't remember who else was in that, but there was. I'm trying to think if anybody was in the same movie of both of them, but that movie had that theme, and there was the woman who it turns out in this movie she was Gordy, the
Yes.
primate had mutilated her, and that's why she
Yes.
looked like that. And so I
Yeah.
thought that like they were trying to do a horse thing there in the trailer. I'd misunderstood that, and I
Yeah.
intentionally like avoided rewatching it. It was definitely had the Western movie aspects on top of the tribute to Hollywood thing. So I think that's where I got some Once Upon a Time in Hollywood vibes from it.
Sure.
We're also talking about other great directors. You mentioned Spielberg. I think Close Encounters is probably the closest movie. I know Jaws makes sense on the animal thing. On
Right.
the alien thing, it's a very Close Encounters movie in my mind.
I can totally see
Um,
that. Yeah, for sure.
to where it's like it's far away and you're kind of like seeing it closer and eventually like and there's like these signs of it and you're hearing noises that relate to it. That stuff was crucial where you're really just seeing like the impact of it of like okay, when this thing shows up a mystery happens and the power goes
Mhm.
out and metal sometimes falls from the sky. What's going on? They did a really good job of that, and to me, it was just as successful as Close Encounters was in that type of storytelling for outer space. Nope, not of planet Earth, NOPE stuff. Another one is Arrival, Denis Villeneuve's movie, where it
Oh,
gave me
yeah.
some of those feelings of this spectacle of this thing in the air that everyone's like can't help but stare up at and
Right.
obsess over. That was and then also it's not really that similar, but there was something Nightmare Alley about it. If I'm going to bring in another director, it's like there's the freak show aspect of it,
Yep.
the carnival Hollywood aspect
Yep.
of it. There's also like the whole Steve Yeun universe, the
Yep.
Steve Yeun universe. That was clever.
The universe.
Where he's a Hollywood child actor who has a shrine to his past, and he
Mhm.
has this whole world that he's created that's very carnival esque.
Yeah.
That ends up being like very important to the movie. I heard the only podcast I'd heard that had come out when I'd seen this. They were talking about like they didn't understand that whole subplot, and to me, it made total sense looking
Oh, yeah.
back.
Mhm.
Um, but that aspect of it gave me those vibes to a degree. Um, Jordan Peele's in great company with those directors that we're naming
Oh
right
my
now. Between
goodness.
Shyamalan,
Yeah.
Signs, and Shyamalan is what Spielberg, Denis Villeneuve, Guillermo del Toro. Like he's unquestionable. Like I think after Us, there was some question of okay, was Get Out more of a fluke? Did Us get some of that like reciprocal love of people? Get Out was so special, and then maybe if he did that again, like where it was a lower tier movie, like okay, that maybe he becomes a one hit wonder kind of guy.
Mhm.
Twilight Zone wasn't that successful. No, this one to me was like no proof this dude's got it.
Right.
Um, I think the other thing worth mentioning on just the whole animal aspect of it is I think my favorite scene, which rewatching it, I'm sure like more things would pop out. But there's a moment where Daniel Kaluuya's character is saving Keke Palmer's character's life, where she has to start up this motorcycle to get out of there, and he has to peel, no pun intended, Jordan Peele. He has to peel the creature away,
Yeah.
and he's treating it like a horse that he's
Yep.
taming, and is
Mhm.
staring at it, which he knows he's not supposed to do. And then like
Yep.
the way that they walk that line, and they're doing the whole setup of going through like bulls. If you show red, then that'll make them want to attack, and certain animals. If you make eye contact with them, that'll make them want to attack. The horse was one that was a big scene earlier in the movie.
Yep.
That was really cool watching them set that up. I think that's my favorite thing, and maybe it's just how I'm like logistics minded or something, but like seeing them create that and then it all come to a head in that very tense moment and
Yeah.
then having to like that was amazing, and I was fully sucked into the movie at that point as if I was about to get sucked into that creature's belly. I'm just like couldn't help but staring up at it.
Hmm.
I think the other thing that I didn't get into enough earlier, which you got into, was like, goddamn, Keke Palmer
Oh,
fucking crushed that. I know it's the one
oh my.
everybody's gonna talk about, the standout performance. It was so fucking special. I know that Lupita Nyong'o gave a great performance in Us. While I didn't find that movie to be fully successful overall, her performance was unbelievable, and
Yeah.
she got completely jilted by the Oscars that year. Everyone knew it and was talking about it afterward. I hope that this year they rectify that mistake. And right now, I'd have to like come up with a fake ballot based on what we have so far. We haven't had the end of the year push, but right now, if she's not a nominee, damn. And I could see her winning this for sure without knowing who she
Hmm.
stacked up against. That character was special.
Yeah.
Daniel Kaluuya did a great job, and we were talking before, like, okay, he's the protagonist. He's probably the character that the movie revolves around the most in certain ways, but he's also the one who's most reliable, to where it's only him and the dad asks, "Where's your sister?" Daniel Kaluuya is the first one on the set where Keke Palmer shows up late. That's part of her character's whole, like the je ne sais quoi, or like
Yeah.
the charisma of her.
Hmm.
Um, that energy she had was unbelievable. So Daniel Kaluuya's character is very quiet and subtle, and he has one moment where he's punching the steering wheel and some really great intensity, which he's great at. We've
Yeah.
seen Daniel Kaluuya give literal Oscar-winning performances, and Get Out is another one where he was nominated for that one but didn't win. But he wins later for Judas and the Black Messiah.
Hmm.
But damn, he's good and powerful, and he's stewing his character the whole time. And there's stuff bubbling underneath. He does a good job of that grief after his father passes early in the movie. But Keke Palmer has to have about 1,000 times more lines than his character does, because she's talky, and damn, she's good at it. It didn't feel like I'm watching an actor trying to play in a Jordan Peele movie or trying to
Hmm.
play a sister. Like, they were brother and sister, and she was that character. That was incredible to see. We talked about it. Steve Yeun's got 1,000 batting average. I've never seen that dude miss a single
Yeah.
pitch that comes his way. He
Totally.
is
Yeah.
spotless in his career. But those were very special. I think all the rest of the performances were either solid or like, you know, mentionable. Like, nobody messed up their assignment by any means, but
Hmm.
those assignments in particular were special. The other one, which we're just doing some like quick internet research right before, I didn't notice, but the dude who played Gordy, which I don't know to what degree it's CGI, real animal, or a man in a suit, but the dude who played Gordy is also did Avatar, Planet of the Apes, Hobbit, Carlos
Oh.
Blind. It's Terry Notary, and he had another movie where he was a man. Like, it was, I don't even know. It was called The Square. It was a foreign film where he plays a performance artist guy who does gorilla like um, performance art in a
Hmm.
rich crowd, and like throws a woman's chair down and like smashes her food. And I remember his face. So when I saw like the cast, I was like, how do I know who that dude is? He
Yeah.
was really good at that. So that was another one. Like, I didn't even realize the cast went that deep, where they took that casting assignment very seriously. I think the only other thing I would get into, which we can do when we're talking about theory, but the Gordy aspect and the Steve
Sure.
Yeun, that TV show, that scene in particular
Hmm.
was so captivating.
Yeah.
It attributes to the overall message about Hollywood, and people's obsession with fame, attention, narcissism, etc. But I really liked that plot. That was, most of the movie is set on that same farm,
Hmm.
and most of the rest of it set just down the street at Steve Yeun's character's ranch. There's only one other time where we're at the production studio at the beginning of the movie,
Right.
or the production studio where Gordy, the kid show, is being filmed. I
Hmm.
think those are the only locations we have.
Yeah.
So I was happy to get off the ranch of Daniel Kaluuya's ranch, and get any time spent outside of there was really fun, and it got to provide some relief anytime Steve Yeun's character showed up. So I think those were my favorite parts, and those are some of the reasons why I love this movie so much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, great points. And to go back on like the locations and all that. I think one thing that Jordan Peele does really well is not having his characters go to too many places because you still want to build that tension, right, as to their centralized location. In Get Out, everything mainly took place in the house of the parents, right, where all that stuff kind of like happened. In Us, it took place on this yeah, kind of like beach vacation, city where all this stuff happened, and mainly like on the Santa Monica, like no, Santa Cruz, right, on the beach there, right. Here, you have, and it's a huge mass land area. You have the ranch, and you have Stephen Yeun's characters like little circus carnival theme park thing, but that's it, right? But still, you're
Yeah.
dealing with a mass, a huge landmass that anything can happen, and most of it is open space. So this time we're not in a box, we're not in like a closed area, and you, like what we mentioned before, you're dealing with daylight and nighttime, and things do happen during each. So it's one of those things where you never know what's going to happen at any given time, right? And I feel like you feel like the characters in the movie where you're just like you're always on edge. Just okay, what's happening? What's all that stuff that's gonna come down and everything like that. Um, to go back more on like some of the cool things about the movie, I really so talking about like two of the major kind of horrific parts of this movie. When we're talking about it being like a horror movie, or in within the horror genre. Obviously, we already brought it up when the Gordy character, the orangutan, loses his shit, and because of the pop of a balloon, and basically goes bananas, no pun intended, and attacks
No.
one of the characters, and
No.
then later on attacks another character who's trying to just escape and everything, and it's just bloodshed all over the place, and you see this monkey, this orangutan, bloody mouth, hands, all that stuff, because,
Yo.
like you said, mutilated this actress, and then sees the young Stephen Yeun character, but who's the main character in, I guess, the entire show, right? Or they have this
Well, he also
bond.
fucks the dad up too in the
Right.
in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
show.
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean, he like no one was safe in that scene, and
yo.
poor
Yeah.
Stephen Yeun's like as a younger self is just looking at everything from under the table.
Hmm.
Finally, Gordy sees him, and because of this bond that they have, kind of slowly snaps out of it and be like, fist bump, which was like a running thing where Stephen Yeun's character says like this was the first fist bump explosion.
Exploding fist bump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
Oh, that
is
was
like,
you.
yeah, I'm like, oh, you're the one who invented that. Very nice. That yeah, So it's so like chilling, like that entire sequence, and you only got a real small glimpse of it in the beginning of the movie, but when they expanded on it during like a flashback moment, it's so chilling and very horrific, right? With a very interesting end to it as well. The other part is because this creature, this alien UFO like creature, like pretty much sucks things up and like kind of digests them and eats them, he sometimes has to let go of certain things that don't really digest that well. And there's this one there's one moment where he's on top of the ranch house where Daniel Kaluuya's character is and Keke Palmer's character is, and just decides to throw up, and it just rains blood during the whole, like this. It was like a good 5 minute sequence of just
Yo.
throwing up blood, throwing up discarded junk and more coins and keys and all this stuff like that. And it's so very gory. And that's like outside of like the Gordy sequence, that's probably like the other like main gory scene in this whole movie. Um, but let's talk about the creature. Okay, let's talk about the creature because I
Yep.
think the creature, again, not what a lot of people were expecting. And I give kudos to the trailer for not giving a lot away. They hint at a lot of different things
Yep.
and they do a lot of misdirects too, where I think a lot of people were assuming, like yourself, when you saw the lady in the crowd with the messed up face, that maybe she was an alien or maybe she was like someone transforming into something. But it turns out that she was the actress who got mutilated by Gordy, right? So there was like a lot of misdirects. And again, everyone thought this thing was a UFO. It turns out to be a real living organism that's like sucking people up. Let's talk
Yeah.
about like really the design of this creature and kind of like
Yes.
the motivation, so to speak, which is kind of interesting because we are talking about it in Hollywood terms. It acts like an animal, where the whole thing's like you're not allowed to look at it because it attacks people who stares at it, right? Or basically like eye
Hmm.
contact. Um, in the creature in itself looks like a floating eye, which is like very, very interesting, and goes to another theory that probably one of my main theories that I have for this movie. Um,
Yeah.
but then later in the movie, it actually opens itself up and kind of, I guess, evolves or reveals its true self in a way. And the design is just this very flowy, almost kind of beautiful looking alien, which is
Angelic jellyfish. These
right.
are the words that come to mind for sure.
Yeah. But for something like that to create such destruction and harm and violence is just so,
Mm.
it's like a nice little contrast there, right? And then I also love when it's in that angelic state, when it shows its mouth or its whatever it
Hmm.
does to devour, how it's very reminiscent for me, like the inner workings of a camera. And I don't know if you
Mm.
picked up on that or not, but the
That makes
use
sense.
of the green color, the use of the boxes, because it's like a box on top of a box on top
Right.
of a box, kind of like a shutter, right? And
Yeah.
like, again, it goes to which I'm pretty sure one of your theories and speculations are in this movie about this movie is being under the spotlight, being under the public eye or an eye of several people, and kind of the after effects and kind of the negatives and positives that could lead to someone in their life and maybe in their career in Hollywood. So it's very interesting how that design in itself was very, I'm sure, on point and very purposefully done that way, to kind of portray this kind of theory or this kind of hidden message in there. So I did find that really interesting. What did you like about the alien creature in itself and how that was like kind of all revealed in the movie?
It was sexy as hell. That thing is ethereal and gorgeous and floaty, and it's majestic.
Yeah.
I we can get to the camera thing more later, but I think
Hmm.
the word captivating is very applicable in both ways. It's literally, or like capturing, like it's literally capturing things,
Yeah.
and it's captivating to look at. It is like a
Mhm.
captive Vader, like however you want to use that word. But
Yeah.
I loved it. So my question before I get into it, I did you think when they showed the aliens as the humanoid looking creepy creatures, did you think those were the aliens? Because I know I did, and now looking back, I'm seeing like, were they making fun of the movie Signs?
I totally fell for that. I totally fell
Me
for
too,
that. Yeah, because
bro.
again, perfect M Night Shyamalan moment, that whole sequence,
Yep,
because and
yep,
again, huge, like perfect throwback to Signs, where
yep.
Daniel's character is looking like at a certain area and you don't even catch it immediately, and then one of these things just stands up and it was there the whole time. And I verbally was like, "Oh shit!" I went like that in the theater
Yep.
because I was like, "Yo!" And then when it started slowly walking, then another one comes out from the side, and I was just like, "Oh no!" Like it was really, really one of those moments. But then it turns out that they were just kids in costumes and all that. So
Yeah,
definitely
brilliant.
got me fooled. But so brilliantly done, so brilliantly done.
Because those were actors hired by Steve Yeun for his big alien
Right?
reveal show, which is so weird in itself.
Yeah.
Um, there's probably some like extra meaning you could read into that of like the decoys and the
Yeah.
way that the horse decoy. We can get into that later, but like false,
Mhm.
like acting or something, um, fakes of the real thing.
Mhm.
But the actual alien creature itself, I'm glad that those weren't it. My first thought is I go, oh, that's creepy. Fuck, did they just show the alien? Damn it, Signs, you're doing that thing again. Um, which I remember. Maybe I was just younger and more susceptible. Maybe I'm just chicken shit. But Signs was effective for me when they showed the alien. I go
Sure.
ah, and like I
Oh
freaked
yeah.
out. A lot of people
Hmm.
were acting like it was corny as hell. And there is something weird. Like it's the debate in all of those type of movies. When do you show it?
Yeah.
When do you play that card?
Yeah.
And they did a good job of doing the fake reveal, and it turns out the real thing was so much different than that. If
Yeah.
the real thing had just looked like that, or like there'll be the movies where I'm thinking of Scream, where you see the mask person and later on someone's wearing that mask thing.
Right.
Like
Hmm.
I'm glad it wasn't anything like that. It was just so different. And then it also did a good job of the problem with alien movie stuff and aliens in Hollywood is why do we think aliens look like that? Why do
Yeah.
we think they're like humans that are green with big ol' eyeballs?
Yeah.
That's so silly. Of course, it's going to be something so damn weird that we're going to have a hard time even seeing it or knowing what it is
Hmm.
we're looking at. The fact that it hides behind a cloud that doesn't move, that
Yeah.
scene got me. It was effective. And it wasn't like scary. It was just like, oh my God, that cloud's not moving. I didn't catch it. That was really clever. And the idea
Yeah.
that like we don't know what this thing's special powers are.
Hmm.
We get when we are inside of it or like getting a view up close, it's so close. We're mainly seeing people screaming and being sucked in.
Yeah.
And everything else is pretty damn far away. It's always through the perspective of the humans, which is a good job of that thing we're talking about where you don't get all of the angles of the monster, which
Hmm.
might make it creepier, scarier, but I think it's actually creepier to not know the ins and
Yeah.
outs of this monster. And so instead, I'm surprised every time I see it do anything different than what it's been doing. The aliens and Signs, you know, they're about to move their left leg, then their right leg, then their left leg.
Yeah.
This one, you didn't even know how this dude moves. And
Right.
so when it did like come up on you, it was scarier. And they're having to literally, it feels kind of close encounters where you're, because like the main thing, I saw Close Encounters a couple years ago, was the last time. But the main thing I'm remembering from that is they're building a big mound of just junk that looks like the place they're supposed
Hmm.
to go see the alien spacecraft.
Right.
In this one, they're doing the what are those things called? The floaty air monster things,
Yeah. The
the
wavy
the
hand
used
guys.
car wavy hand
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, they're setting those up all over, and the idea
Yeah.
is they'll then know where the alien isn't based on which one of those are turned off because power goes down when those
Hmm.
things show up. That was clever.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, also
Things like that.
it had like two purposes. So that like, that was one of them for sure. But they also had eyes and faces on them
Right.
too.
Yes.
So it would
Yes.
be like a great distractor if they needed to
Yes.
escape or something like that. But it also caused headache for them because if they were too close to it, they'll be caught
Yep.
up in the crazy whirlwind suck too. So
That was such a good way. And it's kind of like, and that's a Jaws thing also, right? Of
yeah.
like where the fin kind of thing, you're like, oh shit, it's
Hmm.
coming. And you only know it because of this small little symbol of that
Right.
thing. Um, that was really, really well done. And so many of these movies, when they flop or get an eye roll from the audience, it's
Hmm.
because of how they handle those questions. How much do you show? How do you show it move? How realistic is it?
Right.
Etc. It was a very imaginative one. I still don't quite get it, and I think that's good. I think it'd be kind of sad if I left the movie going, I understand that alien, and like in Signs where you just had to pour water on it and now it's
Sure.
dead. Like
Yeah.
the idea of this thing coming back and them having like, I don't know the solution, right? If there was another, you had to start over. There, the weakness. It was more like an evasion tactic than anything else of how they
Hmm.
handled it and defeated it. Um, until right the very end. I guess we're doing spoilers, but up until then, like all of their problem solving is around just getting this thing from eating you up.
Yeah.
That was so compelling. I think this is where the movie is so cinematic. I guess we'll make another movie comparison now with Ghostbusters with the big tire guy. There's a
Yeah. The Stay
moment
Puft.
where
Yeah.
this giant, yeah, thank you. What was his name in Ghostbusters?
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of him as the tire guy, the Michelin guy. No, yeah, it's Marshall Man. In this one, you have the giant floating alien and then a giant inflatable squirrel, chipmunk. Oh no, it was like a
No,
cowboy.
no.
It was Stevie Young's
It's
character.
exactly. Yeah, it's a cartoon version of the character. Yeah,
So cute, doing a little
yeah,
doing this
like a
thing.
little with the wink and everything. Yeah,
and they're floating together, and it's eating that thing, and then
Mhm.
for whatever reason, digestion issues are this dude's
Right.
weakness because it's
Right.
not used to eating up stuff from Earth. It's used to eating.
Right.
It needs horses and people, which sure makes sense. So this thing, which is kind of like we're going back now to the concept of like the kids in the alien costumes or the
Mhm.
decoy horse, and how sometimes like someone faking it um, can have power and can also be so destructive.
Mhm.
Where that's in what ends up killing it. It explodes so beautifully. I
It
really like
does.
looking at
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah.
I think if I rewatch it, I'm going to pay particular attention to like staring at the thing, but
Mhm.
you would almost have to do like a lot of pause, play, because the way
Right.
it moves is so unexpected. I never felt like I had a grasp on the creature for at any point during that movie.
Yeah. Well, another thing they did really well with the creature too is you never really at times knew how big it was because of the
Yeah,
perspective, because a lot of times in early, especially early on, you saw it in a distance, right? And then, but then when it would like zoom in immediately, you see how massive this thing is. And it's just like,
yeah.
it's like, whoa, like you didn't realize what they were dealing with, right? And I felt like they did such a good job at kind of not giving you the full perspective view so that when it does come to those moments, you're just like, whoa, this thing is like this huge menacing threat for sure. I guess in itself that could be pretty horrifying, right? So to again to add to the horrific genre here, but I, at this
That's
point, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's another aspect is the inability to capture on camera. That's
Yeah.
another problem where these movies can go wrong is okay, you this thing is now so big it's in outer space. The whole world knows about it within a few minutes because it's on the
Yeah.
news,
Hmm.
Pacific Rim style. And in this one, or like Godzilla style, no, this one part of its majesty was its ability to hide,
Yeah. Hmm.
and that it was that they a huge focus of the movie was how do we capture this thing not
Hmm.
physically but on camera. And then anytime they did have any images, it was like, well, that's not good enough, that's going to look like some fake
Right.
UFO shit.
Right.
And that was an ongoing theme up until the very last moments with
Hmm.
Keke Palmer's character trying to take that last picture. That was
Yeah.
clever.
Which was also like very interesting too, where you would think like if this happened to you or I, the number one focus would be like, how do we get away or how do we kill it, right? For them, their number one focus was, well, how are we going to capture it on camera? To document it and all that, and that was like a huge, huge thing. Which again, I think could go into the next
For sure.
section and part where we're going to talk about themes and
Yes.
kind of hidden messages and all that stuff like that.
Yes.
So let's just do that right now because that would be like a great time to, because again, we've said it before, it wouldn't be a Jordan Peele movie if there wasn't stuff like this to talk about. So I'll just go first because I don't have as much maybe as you, and I'm actually dying to hear all of your theories and speculations about this movie and everything. But for me, again, I brought it up with the creature itself, and I think that's kind of what really, really made me realize it at the end when it showed its true form, and again it just was very reminiscent of a camera, like a shutter of a camera. And it reminded me when we go back to the opening credits, how we were inside of the creature without us even knowing that we were inside of the creature, and how it was like this squared like hallway or tube, and at the end of the credits you zoom into the old footage of the jockey on the horse in the old timey footage and all that. So when I started putting all that together, I'm like, oh, this is a camera. It's a camera. It looks like an eye earlier on, so it's really a lot of focus on having eyes on you, having kind of like the public perception, or especially since we're dealing with a lot of Hollywood people in the industry, former actors, this and that. It's a lot of how do people deal with being under the spotlight? How does it affect someone growing up? How does it affect someone living their life? Their positives and negatives. And there have always been talks about paparazzi and public image, and sometimes things don't go right and someone says something on social media and this and that, and then it becomes this huge blown out of proportion thing, or it puts proper light on it because why is this person acting the way they are or saying the certain things that they say, right? So I do feel like that was a huge theme in this movie, and I think it's done very brilliantly too, and it kind of planted the seed in there too. Like I said in the beginning credits, but also because of the whole Gordy television show, like kind of like how you they are manipulating this creature, this animal, to be on this show, and then things go wrong, and how it affects the young Steven Yeun character, and then how he grows up, and then now he's typical former child actress, can't get out of that certain time, even though this most horrific moment in his life happened. He turns it into this like grand accomplishment that he charges foreign visitors 50 grand to sleep there overnight and hang out with all the props and memorabilia from this show and all that stuff. And then, in itself, because kind of like what they did with the orangutan, he tries to tame this alien creature that he already knew was around for his own benefit, for a spectacle, for a show. And how it just totally like, spits it right back in his face and kind of like ruins all of that. So it's just very, very interesting how, for me, that's like the main stuff that really, really stood out there. And again, there could be many more things. I also want to bring up this one thing where, what I said before, it was like a homage to Hollywood and filmmaking. The filmmaking aspect, again, I feel like there are certain things that tie that. The creature itself, I said, looks like a camera, looks like a shutter, and all that. The importance of the characters to document this thing and get it on film and get it on camera, how they have to hire this cinematographer, this director, to capture it, how he himself dies because he has to get that last shot, that money shot, the up close and personal shot. So it's like the art of filmmaking, or the passion or the desire, whatever. The look of the film itself, but the ending credits, how, I don't know, for me, maybe it's just me, but it felt like a Pantone palette. How it kept, like, it went from the spectrum of a Pantone swatch.
Mm.
How it started off like extremely bright orange, ends into a dark blue by the end of the credits and all that. And for someone who is familiar with editing and filmmaking and color correction and all that, that really stood out for me. Again, that could just be my own takeaway from that, but that's just something that kind of screamed at me there. So that's just my theory, speculation, hidden messages in there. That's my take. But Blake, as our resident speculator, as our as our theorist over here, I'm so looking forward to hearing what you have to say about what are your takeaways from this movie.
So I have a lot, and I'm honestly asking, like, interrupt me if you want to add in on anything, because like the amount of notes I took on this exact thing,
Yeah,
it's not a long spiel. It's just like there were so many things in the
sure.
movie that lend to that
Mm-hmm.
meaning, and which any Jordan Peele movie, I remember that was the best fun of Get Out, was going to lunch afterward and going through Easter eggs, and like, oh, this thing meant that, and like, oh, her cereal was separated, the color Fruit Loops from the white milk, and like
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. This movie was full of stuff like that.
Yeah.
The I think you're talking about the camera looking like the creature, and sorry if you already mentioned this fact, but like the opening credits are done over that image, that
Yep.
square
Mm-hmm.
of the character's guts.
Yep.
So that's obviously important.
Yep.
The next thing that I recall, and these might be in a slightly different order, I'll know when I rewatch it, but it shows the quote from the Bible, Nahum 3:6. I will pelt you with filth, I will treat you with contempt, and make you a spectacle. As if like the punishment would be making someone a spectacle, which
Yeah.
this movie is all about. And I still am not quite sure where it lands on being obsessed with capturing things, or being obsessed with being captured or
Yeah.
recorded, being a celebrity. In some ways, the monster itself is obsessed with being looked at, but
Yeah.
also that causes violence, and then it then captures other people. So I'm still not, I think it's almost like a message of narcissism more than anything,
Mm-hmm.
where being looked at and looking in the eye with in narcissism yourself, being
Mm-hmm.
self-obsessed, is so dangerous. So it mainly just feels like Jordan Peele doing a send up of Hollywood in total, that
Yeah.
whole concept of this like this Ouroboros of this thing that at every award show every year is just sucking its own dick.
Right.
And that criticism of Hollywood, it's a takedown of that, in my opinion, more than anything.
Yeah, and if
Um,
I may add to that real quick, like, because I love that you brought that up. It just made me think about it too, where it's like, if you notice, like in the very beginning, the victims of this creature were the horses, right? And if you really think about it, the horses, that they were the ones pushing the horses to be on camera, to be kind of the celebrity. Daniel Kaluuya's character, Keke Palmer, they were not looking to be celebrities. They weren't really always looking to be on camera and all that. That's why at the end of this movie, they were quote unquote spared. Steven Yeun's character is an actor, and he's all about the spotlight and speculate, the spectacle and all that. And he ends up getting eaten by this creature and all that. And if you notice, everyone who seems to put importance in being on film, being recorded, being in the spotlight, somehow face their demise, right? But those who were not, they're the ones who ended up coming through at the end. So again, it's just something, what very, very close to what you were talking about.
for sure, for sure. And then the main opener. This might be, I guess it goes opening titles, not the opening credits, but the monkey's paw. Which we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about the animal stuff. That's another example of like the way this all ties into animal things.
Yeah.
Monkey Paw Productions. One of the characters is named Antlers, the director. I was looking up the cast. The one Angel's coworker who works at the Best Buy, not Best Buy place, her name is Nessie, which is like
Mm.
the Loch Ness monster. Um, so when we're talking about and then Gordy being that animal character who's the original monster in the timeline of
Right.
this movie.
Right.
Um, that scene, because we show the full thing. They hint at it by showing it in the very, very beginning of the movie. We hinted at it later with Steve Yeun's character kind of like blowing off the story or like turning it into like an SNL, talking about the SNL skit that was based off of it, and how it was like, oh yeah, they got it totally right. And then you see the real thing
The
and
Chris
it's so
Kattan.
fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, God, that was so good hearing him go off about that. And that's an
Yeah.
example of like the Ouroboros thing of like Hollywood sucking its own dick kind of thing of like
Yeah.
he's excited about the parody of the traumatic thing that happened to him because it was a big story.
Yeah.
And he's telling that story while in a shrine to his own traumatic ass past where he saw one person get mutilated, another, I assume, murdered by his
Yeah.
friend / co-star
Right.
creature, Gordy. I'm not going to get too deep into this one, but I'm sure if anybody wants to go off in the comments with help on this, the names feel important to me. So I already mentioned Nessie and Antlers as
Mm.
names of smaller characters. Gordy as the is it ape, orangutan, primate? I'm not sure, but that character um, there that feels like it might be a shout out to Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown. I'm not going to like geek out too hard on these people's
Wow.
Wikipedia pages.
Wow.
Hear me out. I got two more for you. Daniel Kaluuya's character's name is O.J. Haywood.
Right.
And these are two famous black athletes between Spencer Haywood and O.J. Simpson. I'm not sure about the Spencer Haywood thing. I'm not as confident about that one. But O.J. Simpson, he's like known as the first black athlete celebrity person who's in all the
Yeah.
commercials. He's doing movies. And that person who's like obsessed with Hollywood. And then Spencer Haywood is on the Showtime Lakers. He's married to Iman, the model who eventually becomes David Bowie's wife. And he's addicted to drugs,
Right.
and that's part of his downfall. And in both cases, you might be able to make a case. When I heard that name, I was like, is this going to be a drug commentary too? You can make a case on Hollywood and celebrity as addiction,
Sure.
as being part of people's downfall. And then Berry Gordy, you can go into a deep rabbit hole on that dude's wild Wikipedia page. And then I'm also not going to go too. Thank you. I'm digging here. I'm not going to go too deep into these, but the chapter names, those are a couple of them of the names I mentioned. Gordy, Lucky, and Clover are part of like the chapter names. The other and Ghost, and then the other ones were Jean Jacket, and then Nope at the beginning, which I think was just a movie title, but I don't know that was a chapter title necessarily. Anyway, these things are very important. So you mentioned the camera aspect of the alien stomach, and then the other very beginning scene being Gordy the ape, and that childhood TV show aspect being, it's obviously important when you start a movie off with that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's great fucking movie making, because that scene was, once they finally got around to it, it was wild.
Yeah. Totally.
I think we talked about already the decoys, different ways that they had decoys in it, and
Hmm.
that could be a metaphor for acting. Um, the the way that the alien creature sucks things in and is a power vacuum, where literally when it shows up, power leaves. And
Hmm.
I don't know if it's taking in some of that power. I also wasn't sure if when it became super majestic, if it was finally full of what it needed. And we're also not sure if when it got sick, like we know it ate some bad stuff and that the horse messed it up. But that I want to get more into on the rewatch of
Hmm.
how is it actually using the power, or is the power just leaves when it shows up? But there's definitely something about celebrity, Hollywood, power, and then success, self-importance. I think these
Hmm.
things all relate. And then let's get to the money one. I think is interesting, because you're right that the two main characters are spared, and they're not
Yeah.
obsessed with being celebrities, but they are obsessed with capturing this thing on camera, and that almost gets them sucked up into this vacuum
Right.
themselves. And at some point, they're not doing it because they're obsessed with taking pictures of the thing. They're doing it for success, and by success, we're just talking about money. We know
Yeah.
that they have money trouble. That's made clear early on, and they're talking about, at some point, Keke Palmer is in the Best Buy, not Best Buy store, talking about we could get rich and famous if we get this thing on tape. We're looking for
Right.
the Oprah shot.
Hmm.
And that idea, the way that we're all in some way obsessed with success and money and need it, makes it to where not even these characters are complicit. In Hollywood, they're in the background, but now they're
Hmm.
part of this whole overall system. And they almost get sucked into the thing multiple times. And,
Right.
and they're and in some ways, like there's spectators. We'll get to that in a second, though, of like the different ways that the whole Hollywood system is indicted in this movie. But the other reason why money is important here for the story is the thing rains down nickels and quarters.
Yeah.
It's obvious that money is part of this whole narrative, and she's even using money at the very end to try to literally capture on film this beast. There's something to be said about when they show the coin up close. I know the first time it's a nickel. There are other times where it might be a quarter. I don't think it goes without, I think it's worth mentioning that it's Thomas Jefferson and George Washington on those coins. And at first, it's definitely Thomas Jefferson on the nickel. And dude was like, he was a celebrity in American history, like a
Yeah.
celebrated figure. It shows his cameo, literally his profile, like his face up, which is like a very Hollywood ass thing. And then we're also can't ignore that Jordan Peele might be making commentary on the fact that like both of these dudes were slave owners. Thomas Jefferson being a rapist slave owner, and like, but there's a vanity to those images being on those
Right.
coins, even though in those things themselves aren't pure. So there's definitely some more meaning to be mined there that I know on rewatch that I'll be
Hmm.
able to get more into. But between the, other than like those, I understand that the picture on the side of the coin isn't necessarily the way we think of celebrity nowadays, but we definitely talk, the next earliest scene that we haven't mentioned yet, of those, the Bible quote, the stomach of the beast that looks like a camera device, and the TV show, is the movie studio where Daniel Kaluuya's character, I guess it's after the dad dies, but Daniel Kaluuya's character showed in the movie studio. So we got movies involved, we got television with Steve Yeun and the
Hmm.
Gordy's home show. They're obsessed with CCTV, and at Best Buy, they're buying those machines to try to capture this thing. Phones as recording devices, to me, which this one is where it's actually significant. And it feels like the point where Jordan Peele makes it very clear that he's talking about capturing celebrity, fame, legacy, etc., is when the guy that they call TMZ, which I didn't notice that it
Yeah.
said TMZ necessarily, but the dude is dying super injured. Daniel Kaluuya is trying to save his life, and the guy's going, "No, why don't you have your camera out? Where's my
Right.
camera?
Where's my
What
camera? Where's
you need
my
to capture
camera?
this."
Yeah.
Like any dumbass fucking who's about to eat Tide Pods on Instagram or is going to try to film themselves doing something
Yeah.
super dangerous on TikTok. And that was like the moment where it was like, okay, Jordan Peele's like, they spent a little, like, there's no way that dude's super injured who's being sucked up by an alien is yelling, like, where's my camera? You got to film this. Why aren't you filming this?
Yeah.
But that's where it's very clear this is an indictment of how now everybody has a camera on them and is obsessed with this concept of celebrity culture and being an overnight internet celebrity. So the internet's indicted, and then we have also got one of my favorite scenes.
Before you continue, like to add to
Yeah,
that too, again, it just brought it back to my memory. When those fake aliens were in the barn approaching Daniel's character, instead of just fully running away, he runs away a little bit, but far enough away to get out his camera so that he can get a
you're
video
right.
of the alien as it's like trying to peek through the corner there, you know? So
You're right.
again, it's very, very like obvious now that you think about it, you know, how I mean, that is our society, right? Like that is like the most when there was and I don't mean to bring this in a somber note, but here in New York, when there was a shooting on the subway in a subway car, most often than not, the people involved in it were so busy taking video footage instead of running away for their lives because they want
Yep.
to have that moment. They want to have like, I got this on camera. I could maybe become famous for this or blah blah blah. Like that's just our society, you know, and it's you know it's something that is definitely like a black spot for sure.
Well, yeah, and I'm the one of the Twilight Zone episodes I was watching today, getting caught up on Jordan Peele's past stuff, was the one where a white police officer is haunting a black teen and his mom, and
Mm,
it saves the day at the end when everyone pulls out their camera to film him, and that's their defense. And this
uh,
movie's kind of doing the exact opposite on the statement of
right,
like phone cameras and
right.
everything that it can also lead to your downfall. The only last example I have of this, like of mediums for fame, is the live crowd, which you mentioned earlier, and
Mm.
it's one of my favorite scenes for sure. Is Steve Yeun's corny ass alien show, which I'm so glad that Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer's characters were trying to get this thing on film and give it to the media
Yeah.
because dude was gonna sell what that audience wasn't even a third full. There's maybe like 60 honkies who look like they belong in Branson, Missouri,
Yeah.
who are sitting there like, what the hell did he just say? This is weird. And then they're all watching this spectacle, and he's revealing the aliens to a live audience, which
Right.
just makes me think this dude is super addicted to that live audience that he had back in the day and like trying to make
Oh
up for
yeah.
something from his
Mm-hmm.
traumatic ass childhood
Oh yeah.
experience. There's got to be something sad and deep there. But then we get to watch this live audience Steve Yeun for the second time in his life. So a live audience gets fucked up by a beast, and
Yeah.
it is so. I was having a hard time not laughing at a few of those moments. That was one where I was like, and then when they're talking about the Chris Kattan one, and like, there's a few moments where like it was so messed up and
Mhm.
tragic that I'm like, let me not laugh right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the last thing I'm mentioning about like him trying to sell tickets to a live
Mhm.
crowd to make up for his lack of a TV audience, and then those people get captured literally by the beast.
Right.
Um,
And also
those
in a
are my
way,
main, yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say in the parallel to that too, it also reminds me of King Kong. Remember like when they captured King Kong and they wanted to make it this big spectacle on
Oh
Broadway and
yeah,
all that stuff like that. In
great
essence,
point.
he was trying to do that to a live audience by kind of having the bait, which was the horse, right? Lucky. So that the alien creature can just come over and you know everyone can see the alien for the first time, but in a live setting, right? So it's so interesting how it kind of parallels that.
That's a great point. Yeah, we got the Frankenstein. Or I'm thinking of Young Frankenstein, the Frankenstein aspect, where they're trying to bring him out for the live
Right,
audience.
right, right,
That
right. Yeah,
shit. But yeah,
yeah,
the King Kong one is a good example.
yeah.
I don't. Those are my main notes. I think at the end, like, there's just enough nods where we know Jordan Peele knows what he's doing. So you were talking about the
Hmm.
music earlier, the sunglasses at
Yes,
night song when we're talking about not
yes.
looking at the beast. The other one I think has to be mentioned since we're talking about Jordan Peele so much is the film director, which correct me if I'm wrong, but that dude reminded me a lot of Werner Herzog's
Oh,
character
100%, one
persona.
hundred
Okay,
percent.
thank
Yeah,
you. I wasn't sure if that was just me, but you have this super deep director, abstract, creepy, older dude who's obsessed with getting the perfect image. And
Yeah.
he's part of the whole Hollywood problem in a
Hmm.
way, but he's also willing to martyr himself and die at the hands of this creature because he's obsessed with this craft of capturing images.
Right.
Um, that character being there at all feels like another one of those Jordan Peele being like, I know this is a little bit silly, but hear me out. You like this is what's bringing the message fully home
Right.
of the statement that he's making. Um, so between like all these things, it's very clear. Like this is one of those. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff I mentioned where I'm going to go on a
Hmm.
website later on in a couple days, and it'll just be here's the 37 things you missed from the
Right.
movie Nope. And I love going through that stuff. So thank you for indulging me.
Oh no, I mean, again, it's a lot of fun to talk about, and Jordan Peele's movies lends to that. So and again, if you're listening to this and watching this, I mean, none of these are confirmed. Obviously, this is just our takeaways from it all. I'm sure there's like Blake said, so many others, right? So we would love to hear what your
Please.
takeaways were. Is there anything to add to what we already mentioned? Do you want to like jump in on some of the things that we talked about? Let us know in the comments and all that. And Jordan Peele, if you're watching this or listening to this, if you could at least say yes or no, maybe to some of them, that would be pretty awesome because we would like to think that we do pay a lot of attention to your movies and
Yep.
we do know what we're talking about.
Nope.
So
Oh
yep.
wait. Yep.
Let us know. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the music real quick because you did mention Sunglasses at Night. Again, Jordan Peele has this great way of turning a popular song and making it creepy because of the situation that it's put in. You mentioned in
I
Get
got five
Out.
on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
First,
Yep.
no, it's okay. Get Out. You first have Redbone, right, which is a Gambino song and all that, and how he uses it in that movie, and it kind of creates a creepy tone to it. In Us, you got five on it. Was used all throughout, and they even did a remix for it. Because in an interview, he said like if you hear that song, it kind of sounds like a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of song and all that. And he ain't wrong. Now he takes this '80s classic song with Sunglasses at Night, but instead of remixing it, he just slows it down, because of the power outage or the lack of power every time this creature's around. And that created a very haunting moment, especially during this key moment where they're trying to get away from this thing, and it was just brilliantly used. I love how he used that there. But I guess to kind of close out our discussion here on this brilliant movie, what do you think, or why do you think the movie was called Nope?
You're asking me?
Yes, I am asking you.
I don't have a deeper answer than the two official answers I've heard through
Okay.
Jordan Peele, which is one, NOPE, not of planet Earth,
Mm-hmm.
as an acronym for alien presences. The other
Mm-hmm.
one is Jordan Peele was saying in an interview that Nope is the sound that a black person would make if they saw an NOPE, where they just go, which we saw so many times in the movie.
Yeah.
Again, like we're not going back into all the cinematography and editing. There's some, like those categories. I think it could not get nominated or win Oscars. But there's one moment in
Mm.
particular. Daniel Kaluuya is very quietly. This movie did such a good job of sound vacuums where everything
Mm.
goes dead quiet, and he like opening the truck door, looks up, goes back and goes, "Nope." Like that. And there's so many times where that word shows up in
Right.
that same kind of context.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have anything beyond those two. And plus, it's a catchy ass title, just like Get Out
Sure.
and Us. He's really good at those. Like this dude
Yeah.
would be great at naming bands, also. I'm sure. But yeah, what are your thoughts there?
Honestly, I don't have any. Like, it's just one of those things where, again, at the end of the movie, even though things were pretty straightforward for the most part, and then you could have time to speculate and theorize on certain things, the title is one that I could not really figure out. Like I get it. It is very true. I have friends who, if they hear something or see something scary, they're like,
Nope,
nope, nope, nope,
nope,
not
nope,
not for me,
nope.
dog. All
Not
that stuff like
today.
that.
Not
Yeah, not
today.
today, not
Hell
today.
no, not today, Satan.
Right.
Yep, nope.
Yeah. So that in itself is smart, because it's true. It's just a phrase that is commonly used. If there is like, because in Us, some people the speculation there that it's a talk. It's kind of the theme is about the United States, America, and all that stuff like that. Get Out, it lends to kind of the thematic stuff that happened throughout that movie. Um, do you believe in the theory that Jordan Peele titles his movie so that it could create one sentence? Have you heard of this theory?
Wait, what? Get Out, Us, Nope? What am I
S
missing here?
Yeah, so there's a theory going around, and I saw this online, where Jordan Peele titles his movie so that it could formulate a certain sentence. So in
Like
this
you would have to
case,
reorder them at some point?
yeah. So like maybe right now it's maybe uh Nope, Get Out, Us, or US, or something like that, or Nope,
Okay.
US, Get Out. It's just there are a lot of people who
Yeah.
are really floating around with this theory, and he's neither confirmed nor denied it. So
I'm trying to think of like NOPE could be reframed into open OPEN if you just like put the one letter at the end or something like that. Like
hmm
I feel like his movies, there were some things in after Get Out where people were going wild with these
sure,
theories, and every now and then you'd be
sure.
like, no, that one was actually an accident. We didn't even mean to do that one. It's just like we noticed it in the editing, and then we're like, oh,
Right,
okay, we'll leave that, I guess. Oops. And then
right.
y'all had some theory based on it. So
Yeah,
that feels like one of those. But sure, now that I'm sure dude's aware of it, and now 10 years from now, we might be able to say, oh, yeah, what a coincidence.
yeah. Yeah, well, again, it's always great and fun to think about, and it's always fun to theorize and speculate and all that stuff. One day, perhaps he will let us know what the true meaning and answers are to everything is. But I think that's also the appeal of him and his movies and his creativity is that he lends it so that we can kind of speculate on our own. And, if we get it, we get it. If we don't, we don't. But I think that's what's making him a really brilliant storyteller right now. And again, after seeing this movie, I am so looking forward and excited to see what he has cooking next because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just been elevating and elevating and elevating. And if you haven't had the chance and given a shot at the Twilight Zone, I think one of the reasons why it's not doing so well is because it is on Apple TV and not a lot of people have bought into Apple TV really. If it was on a Netflix or maybe Amazon, I think more people would
I
be
got
able to
it.
like watch it.
I got it on Paramount Plus, and that's how I was binging it
Is it
earlier
on
today. And
Paramount Plus?
there was also some free app,
Okay.
Pluto something, which I need to check out. But Paramount Plus was the one where I got it.
Oh, you know
It
what? You're
felt like because
right.
it used to be
Yeah.
CBS, and it
Yes,
was
you're
hard to
right.
get because when CBS went, they closed it off,
That's
and
right.
you had to have
Yeah,
this dumb CBS app. Now that it's Paramount Plus, I actually like that
that's
app a
right.
decent amount.
Yeah.
So glad that I maybe borrowed my friend's password for that one. Don't tell
Oh, don't say
anybody.
that. Don't say that online. Don't say that online. Just start cracking down
Venmo
on
me
you.
$5. Make 10 comments and I'll give you the password. Nope.
There you
Just
go.
kidding.
There. Nope. But again, we enjoyed talking about this movie. Hopefully, you enjoyed listening and watching. Again, we would love to hear your thoughts about the movie. Let us know your theories. Let us know what themes you took away from this movie. Let us know which performances and moments you enjoyed the most. But this pretty much ends our episode of Movie Time this week. Before we go, as always, Blake, where can people find you online?
Go to Letterboxd where I have an account, Blake Wolf SSN, and you'll see where I gave the film Nope 5 stars.
Nice, very nice. And do you have an updated count for us by any chance as
I
to?
have I have not checked lately.
I'm
Um,
just really curious,
it,
but maybe we could reveal that in the next episode. So,
yes,
uh,
yeah.
but yeah, definitely do follow Blake. He has some interesting and fun movie lists there for sure. So it's definitely not a boring follow whatsoever. As for myself, you see all the handles up there on the screen: Lowkey Geek, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I might be doing more stuff on TikTok. Let's see. I don't know yet. But definitely also on YouTube and on podcast platforms. So, like I said before, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Those are the easiest ways to show your support and love for this show and for the channel. Doesn't cost you a thing. Audio listeners, podcast, Loki Geek up on there. This episode plus so much more. Leave a great rating, and do if you were brought to that channel or this channel because of this particular episode, leave a comment. Just say nope. Just say nope, nope,
Nope.
nope, nope,
Nope.
nope. Because that would be the best and funniest thing. We would definitely get a huge crack of that for sure. We'd get a huge laugh out of it. But that being said, I'm Renee. This is Blake. This has been Movie Time. See you all next week. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. Peace out, y'all. Nope.